Welcome into the DFS Den. It's Dave Eddy here, aka Corporal Eddy on Twitter, and let's talk about Showdowns. So Showdowns are a very high variance, pretty new format as well, where it's just a single game tournament. So it's just one single game on the slate, and you're going ahead and trying to figure out basically how the game's going to go. So it has one captain, which on DraftKings is 1.5 times the salary of the player as he could be played in the flex, but they also score 1.5 times the points. And so with your one captain, you've got 5 flexes to go along with it. Now the flexes can be any position. We're talking defense, special teams, and kicker as well. Now typically the way that I like to build this is, most people are going 3 and 3, so 3 players from each team. So that means I don't want to do that. If that's what everyone else is doing, then we're going to gain at least some leverage by going the opposite of that. So we're going to be looking to build either 4-2 or 5-1. I wouldn't ever kind of go into a showdown with one or the other in mind. Just kind of, go to build your, lineup and just kind of see how it plays out. If it ends up being 3x3, it's really not the end of the world, but I would try to force a 4-2 or 5-1 most times. Now let's talk about the captain spot, okay? Obviously, like I said, captain spot 1.5 times the salary, but they also score 1.5 times the points. Now, typically for me, this is going to be a wide receiver. It also can be a running back or a quarterback, depending on, the situation. And in the right spots, it can be a tight end. So let's talk about each one of these positions. A wide receiver. Now, there's not many hard and fast rules that I have in DFS. One of them is in the showdown, if my captain is a wide receiver, they absolutely must be correlated with a quarterback in the flex. And basically the reason for this is if a wide receiver is going to have a good enough game that they're going to be the optimal play as captain, then that means almost assuredly their quarterback is going to be, having a good enough game that they're going to be needed in the flex as well to be optimal. So pretty much, I'm never going to play a wide receiver as captain without pairing them with their quarterback. You can do what you want to, but for me, that is a very rare hard and fast rule. Now, a running back. A running back can be paired with a quarterback, but they need to be someone that's going to be heavily involved in the pass game. Doesn't probably make a ton of sense to have the running back as a captain saying, hey, I think that they're going to be the most valuable player on the slate, and then pair them with the quarterback if it's going to be because they're going to rush for, let's say, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Probably means the quarterback isn't doing a whole lot. So usually needs to be correlated with, a guy that's going to be catching a lot of passes if you're going to pair the quarterback up with him. But at the same time, you could also look at it and maybe in a more lower scoring game, you could say, hey, I want the running back and the quarterback together. I think the running back is going to be a much better value. And I just want to cover all the touchdowns from that game. So if the running back gets, 1 and the quarterback throws 1, I just want to cover all the touchdowns there. And then you probably want to also then pair that quarterback in the flex with the wide receiver that you think is most likely to do that so that, you have the opportunity to win the showdown. But if you're not going to pair him with a quarterback, absolutely fine. You also can pair him with their defense special teams as well. That kind of theory goes back to same thing in just, playing, regular MME where, the running back's going to have a big game and they're going to be ahead. So that's why he's going to get a lot of touches, which means that the defense and special teams is likely going against a team that's going to be throwing the ball a lot. So lots of opportunities for sacks and interceptions. So that makes sense there. When we do that, though, that also means we need to be smart, and our lineup, needs to tell a story. So we need to be putting the opposing quarterback and a pass catcher in the flex in that same lineup if we're going running back and defense special teams. Because, again, it's only going to make sense that if the running back is having a big game because they've got a huge lead, that the defense, like I said, is going to get sacks and interceptions, which means that the quarterback's going to be throwing the ball a lot. So even though he may not be having a great game, he's probably going to be putting up a lot of points. So, again, that's what makes Showdown such high variance is you've really got to nail the game script exactly. Now, a tight end. Tight end, very similar to a wide receiver, would have to be correlated with a quarterback in the flex. I don't see any logic behind playing a tight end in your captain spot if you don't pair him with his quarterback. I just, again, doesn't make any sense. Now, if you play a quarterback in the captain spot, I always correlate them with at least, well, not at least, with 2 pass catchers. I would say at a minimum, it has to be 1. Again, wouldn't really make a ton of sense, even with a mobile quarterback, to put him in the flex and then not pair him with at least 1 pass catcher. I can't see a way that the roster construction would make sense to where you would do that. So I almost always pair him with 2 pass catchers. I guess if it's a mobile quarterback, 1 pass catcher can make sense, but then you've got to figure out, how to fill out the rest of the lineup and make it make sense. Now, when we get to the flex, I always say you need to have at least 2 spots at flex that are correlated with the captain. And we've talked about the captain spot and how we would go about doing that. So depending on who your captain is, that should fill up at least 2 of those flex spots, if not a third. And then all flex spots should be correlated either to another flex spot or to the captain position. Again, this is such a high variance format that we need to get as few things right as possible because there's only so many combinations that can hit. And no matter what you do, you're almost assured to have the same lineup as somebody else, and you're going to have a tie when you take down a contest. But if you don't have a very well correlated lineup that just speaks to the exact, way that the game flow is going to go, you're not going to take these down. So pretty much every single spot in a showdown lineup has got to be correlated. There's obviously, you can win without doing that, but that's going to be few and far between. Now, defense and special teams and the kicking position, they're fine in the flex. I would definitely limit it to only, 1 defense special teams or 1 kicker. I wouldn't play both kickers. I wouldn't play both defenses. Theoretically, you could play a defense and a kicker in the same lineup. I, again, would almost surely avoid that. The odds of that being optimal are pretty slim. So kind of just pick one if you're going to use any. You definitely don't have to use a defense. You definitely don't have to use a kicker. But usually those are pretty good cost savers. So slipping one of those in there a lot of times, so long as it's correlated, it does make sense. But again, definitely not mandatory that you play one. And then absolutely do not play a kicker or a defense in the captain spot. It just almost never wins. It's basically throwing away money in that case. So if you really want to be unique and you really want to do it, knock yourself out. But just know that alone is almost giving up your chance to win. And then I would say you should be playing at least 1 quarterback, if not both, in the lineups. It has been shown over and over and over again that quarterbacks, specifically in the flex, are what are optimal. If you can fit both quarterbacks in, then that obviously works as well. It makes it very easy to correlate your lineup doing that because obviously you're pairing them with a pass catcher or pass catchers. But quarterbacks really should be your focus in the flex, and wide receivers really should kind of be your focus in the captain spot. Again, doesn't make that a hard, fast rule, but that's typically where I am looking to go. So definitely something you want to keep in mind. Now, if you haven't done so yet, go ahead, pop on over here, subscribe to the channel. When you do so, turn on the notifications so you can get an alert every single time a new video comes out. And if you enjoyed this video on Showdowns, please go ahead and throw a like on here. And if you've enjoyed any of these strategy videos, throw a like on there. And we'll see you next time.